We have an answer for it. I know last night President Biden was asked specifically about this crisis that he created, and his response was, quote, "I don't have a near-term answer for high gas prices." Well, President Biden might not have an answer, but we do. If pipelines were a problem, I know President Biden doesn't want American pipelines, but he greenlighted the Russian pipeline, the Nord Stream 2. So clearly it's not pipelines, it's American pipelines he doesn't want. They include, among other things, a natural gas tax. That tax would fall the hardest on lower-income families, not the millionaires and the billionaires. It would be people making less than $60,000 that would be hit the hardest by a natural gas tax, yet it's in the bill. President Biden inherited a secure border. A wall was being built. You had agreements with South America, Central American countries. Remain in Mexico was a great policy that President Biden reversed. He blocked it. President Biden promised he wouldn't raise taxes on anybody making less than $400,000. And yet, in the tax proposal that President Biden wants to bring forward by next week so that he can go fly to Europe and talk about other proposals that would make it impossible to produce energy in America, they include, among other things, a natural gas tax. That tax would fall the hardest on lower-income families, not the millionaires and the billionaires. It would be people making less than $60,000 that would be hit the hardest by a natural gas tax, yet it's in the bill. You know, you talk about adding 83,000 IRS agents. Maybe some people in Washington think that's job creation. Most people in America have shivers running down their spine at the thought of the federal government, who now wants to track every transaction if they make more than $10,000 a year, to track all their transactions with 83,000 new IRS agents. Again, maybe to some that's called infrastructure. To most people, it's called a nightmare right before Halloween. Why don't we bring bills to the floor to address these crises? And if these aren't the bills that the majority likes, let's work on some other ones. But all of these would address these problems, and many of them would get us back to the point where we were, where we had a secure border, where we had energy dominance, where we had jobs being created well above what each of these last few months you've seen jobs created dramatically lower than what the projections were, because there are all of these self-created crises by the administration that are making it harder on hard-working families. It's the lowest income families that are being hit the hardest by these failed policies and all the big government socialist spending coming out of Washington. We don't need more. We need to actually go and confront the problem that's creating a debt crisis and all the other crises that families are facing. President Biden inherited a secure border. A wall was being built. You had agreements with South America, Central American countries. Remain in Mexico was a great policy that President Biden reversed. He blocked it. Did he block it because it was bad policy? No, it was working really well, and it was agreement between two neighboring countries. He just blocked it because President Trump did it. It was working, and yet he got rid of it. He could go and reinstate that tomorrow. But we have bills that would solve the border crisis. Here, I'll read a few of them off. H.R. 4828. This is a bill I brought to the majority leader's attention back a month ago in September. This is a bill that deals with a number of problems facing our border today, and it would give more tools to our Border Patrol agents to secure our border. H.R. 471, another bill that I brought to the gentleman's attention a month ago that would help secure America's border, dealing with the crisis. None of these bills seem to draw the interest of the majority, even though every one of them would address these very real crises facing families. Not that were around a year ago. You know, what was inherited? I think we know what was inherited by the Biden administration. We had energy dominance the day President Biden took the oath of office. Not only were we producing enough energy for our needs, gas was less than $2 a gallon all across America. We were exporting oil and natural gas to our friends around the world. We were undermining our enemies around the world. Instead of President Biden begging OPEC and Russia to produce more oil, we were actually shipping oil to our friends because we could produce enough for ourselves. We created great American jobs here at home. We had low-cost energy. And by the way, the technological advances we made here in this country, if there's anywhere in the world where fossil fuel production is going to be done, you want it done here because we've actually lowered carbon emissions. We were lowering carbon emissions in America while producing more energy. Now that we've become more reliant on OPEC nations, on Russia, not only is that bad for American families, they're paying more at the pump because of that crisis created by President Biden's actions, inherited an energy-dominant nation. Now you have the President of the United States begging OPEC and Russia to produce more oil, which they're not going to do because they want oil to be over $80 a barrel. but they actually emit more carbon to produce the same oil. So oil is going to be needed to run an economy, any economy, anywhere in the world. You want to make it here because we do it better than anybody else, but that's not what's being done. We have an answer for it. I know last night President Biden was asked specifically about this crisis that he created, and his response was, quote, "I don't have a near-term answer for high gas prices." Well, President Biden might not have an answer, but we do. We have a number of bills, and I know the gentleman's pointed out, we have a number of answers. Here's one, H.R. 684, green lights the Keystone Pipeline. You want to talk about creating thousands of good jobs, private sector money, more energy independence for America? This bill would do just that, and it would do it today. And if pipelines were a problem, I know President Biden doesn't want American pipelines, but he green-lighted the Russian pipeline, the Nord Stream 2. So clearly it's not pipelines, it's American pipelines he doesn't want. Why don't we bring up H.R. 684, create jobs, lower energy costs? H.R. 543, H.R. 859 would both greenlight more production in America that President Biden shut down. There was production going on all across America. Really good, safe, environmentally sound production. That's, again, our standards are the best in the world. For people that want to bash America, go find a country that produces energy that does it better than America. We do it best, and yet President Biden, through executive action, shut a lot of that production down. These bills would open that back up again. These bills would lower gas prices. But I know President Biden isn't interested in that because in his own budget, in President Biden's budget, he specifically blocks the Corps of Engineers from doing infrastructure projects that would lower energy production. President Biden blocks that. You would think OPEC would have come up with that idea. Maybe Russia would have come up with that idea. No, that was President Biden in his own budget said you can't even do infrastructure projects if it lowers energy production. Who would come up with that? But yet that's in his budget. You've got an inflation crisis with goods of all kinds costing dramatically more when people go to buy things at the grocery store. If they try to get a new appliance, they're waiting longer, they're paying more money. You think about the energy crisis with families paying 50% more for gasoline in some cases, with dramatic increases at the pump and the pain that it causes, especially lower income families. The border crisis, where every day we see stories of thousands of people coming across our border illegally. The Attorney General was before the Judiciary Committee, and he couldn't even give a number of how many people have illegally crossed or a plan to address it. The supply chain crisis that we see getting worse and worse with ships backed up maybe almost all the way to China because that crisis is not being addressed. And so when you think about all these crises that families are angry about, it's hurting hardworking families, it's costing them, it's taking money out of their paychecks. There's not been a single bill brought to this floor last week. Doesn't sound like any being brought to the floor next week to address any of those crises.